reset where we're going to be talking about surgeries and the long-term effects and kind of the decision to have surgeries, right? I feel like I'm the poster child for trying to undo the effects of surgery, where you guys are probably the poster child for the opposite. So why don't we dive in with a little perspective on surgery from the side of being educated about going into it? Because I do think people are like, oh, I'm just going to go have my knee scoped without thinking so much about things like anesthesia and the post-care and all of that.
I think it's the same with what we spoke yesterday, that sometimes people go into surgery because that's what is recommended, but you don't really know what they're doing. So it happened recently in somebody that I know very dear and close to me getting surgery and asking like, so what is it that they're doing? They're just putting something. O sea, they
My
don't.
favorite is they're just going to clean things up.
Yeah, so no, it's like
The
important
arthroscopic.
stuff. Yeah,
I
like
just asked somebody too. They were like, oh, I've got these loose ligaments in my ankle and I just had surgery. And I'm like, well, what did they do? And they're like, oh, I'm just clean things up. And it's like,
what do you mean?
what does that mean? Because what you need is your ligaments to be tighter. And there is no surgery that tightens ligaments. So anyway, to your point, yes. First of all, know what it is that they're doing.
So then the trauma as well, and you're
Yes, oh no, of course. And after surgery or during surgery, you're gonna get a lot of medications, of course, anesthesia, painkillers, antibiotics, or whatever extra you might need during the
What
surgery.
are some of the effects of anesthesia?
Well, all the medications, whether are metabolized mainly in the liver or in the kidneys, like either of those two organs are the main targets of medications. So eventually you're gonna have like a load in the liver because it has to clear up all that you're putting in that it's strange for the body and that is toxic, of course. So imagine if you are getting surgery, getting all these procedures, all this anesthesia, and you also need post-surgical treatment, and you also need treatment for life. Like, it's a huge burden on the liver, and if your liver is not working properly, everything else gets out of balance.
Oh man, the liver is so important. I've had my moments in the sun talking about the liver cleanse and what a dramatic, it was literally getting my liver cleanse was the difference in daily low level pain and that going away in one liver cleanse in one night. So keeping our livers good, and anesthesia especially is extremely taxing on the liver. So I would love to kind of throw my 2 cents in. Also, like, I had life-saving surgeries and I was in a coma and had several surgeries without permission. And we get it. That is something that has to happen. It just kind of goes in the same category for me that you can wear a knee brace while you're healing and then you can take the knee brace off. It's just not a long-term thing. But I can tell you that being in sports medicine all of these years, I'd be willing to bet that 80% of surgeries you could fix some other way. So I'm not an anti-surgery person. I'm an anti-useless surgeries. And also I've seen it make it worse. So I would say one big question to ask yourself is, does the surgery, because it is a huge risk, does it solve the problem? You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. There's so many people having meniscus surgery, right? So meniscus is in between the femur and the tibia. And when we have torsions and things like that, the meniscus get kind of lengthened, right? It's like, and people tear meniscus all the time, but the surgery is to remove it. So if it was a support structure and you've damaged it, it doesn't make it better to remove it. But you'd be surprised that people who make millions of dollars on their knees don't even ask those types of questions. And I think that why people have a good result is because they do the rehabilitation afterwards, but they could have skipped the surgery and just done the rehabilitation to strengthen the knee and muscles and get massage, or of course I care about fascia care. And then I want to say one other big thing about fascia specifically. Fascia is one big piece, right? So picture all of it in its state. So it's stiff and fibrous. It can also be gelatinous, like more jello-y type. It can be almost liquid, and it literally surrounds every cell. Like, you picture me sitting here like a Jello mold, and then you know how Jello can have fruit stuck in it. It's stick in the brain, stick in the eyes, but it's all literally surrounded by fascia. And it's also the number one reactionary protective system of the entire body. So its way of reacting or protecting is to come in and create scar tissue around vulnerabilities. So even though we might get cut at the shoulder, it's going to take the whole thing and kind of ram it into a black hole. And that's something that affects the right low back in 10 years, but you never associate it with that surgery. So what I would say is, for those of you who can really go down the path of trying to avoid the surgery, please do. And those of you who've had surgery, you need to fascia blast your scars every single day. It will always try to return. Even with my hip, I can blast it every single day. It's been open 23 times. And if I go 2 weeks without blasting it, it's trying to go right back. That fascia has memory, and it remembers surgeries.
Yeah. Wow. You were gonna
Yes,
say something?
I was just gonna say a study really interesting back in the day. They were doing like the placebo effect as well. So they take people with knee problems, and half of the group, they did the surgery, they removed the meniscus. The other half, they just cut the skin and just put the stitches back in. They didn't do anything in the stitch inside the knee. The surprising thing was that everybody, or the people that was not receiving the true surgery, they healed. Like, their knee problems were gone because they knew that it was
Isn't it
already
so funny
fixed.
too that somebody would even be willing to like do a surgery just to be a placebo?
They didn't know that they
Don't
were,
do that.
they
No, it's
thought that they got the surgery. That's the craziest thing. And because they thought
right.
that it was already fixed, and the
That
problem
is a
was gone.
whole nother piece of the Great Reset, is learning that we can bring our body into a new mind. As Joe Dispenza says, we are the placebo. And I always say, if you think you're right, if you think you're wrong, you're right. And it's going to happen. And it's really, really true. The affirmations and like genuinely raising your vibration and your thoughts really can have an impact on your physical health.